All right. Do we have people coming into the room? Into the meeting? We're ready to go?
I was just starting the recording, but
Oh, okay.
yeah. And you got your camera on, you're unmuted, and you're ready.
All right. Is there any protocol for waiting before we begin or? All right. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Havel Weidner. I'm an associate architect with the California Building Standards Commission. With me in the room today is Barbara Trusley, AGPA with the Building Standards Commission, who's managing the teleconferencing technology for this meeting. Welcome to the first Building Standards Commission workshop for non-residential standards pursuant to SB 745, the Drought Resistant Buildings Act. Today is September 25th, 2025, and this meeting is scheduled from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. with a break roughly around noon for lunch. Today's meeting is available via Zoom and teleconference as noted in the workshop notice and agenda. This meeting will also be live streamed on the CBSC, that's the California Building Standards Commission's YouTube channel. Please be aware that the live stream has an approximate 45-second delay, and there is no method for offering verbal or written public comment through the live stream. Closed captioning is available via Zoom's automated live transcriptions. To view the closed captioning in Zoom, click on the CC Live Transcript button. Closed captioning will automatically appear if you are watching via YouTube. The meeting materials may be viewed on the California Building Standards Commission's website as listed in the workshop notice and agenda. Now, Barbara Trusley will read the Zoom and telephone instructions for this meeting.
Okay, good morning. So this Zoom meeting instructions are as follows. To avoid feedback or other technical issues, please join the meeting through one device only. Comments will first be taken from the public in Zoom with their hands raised, then from the public on the Zoom phone line. If you wish to make a comment on a specific agenda item, please listen for CBSC staff to ask for any comments from the public. This time, please virtually raise your hand using the raise hand icon in Zoom. You will be recognized by the meeting's facilitator, me or Hall, in the order your hand was raised. At this time, please unmute yourself. When you're done speaking, please lower your hand and mute yourself. Please make sure you have a working microphone on or attached to your device prior to raising your hand to make a comment. CBSC staff will continue through the queue until there are no raised hands remaining, then take comments from the public on the Zoom phone line. At this time, please unmute yourself. When you're done speaking, please mute yourself again. And when the phone comments are complete, CBSC staff will proceed to the next agenda item. Also, please keep in mind there's a 4-minute time limit when you're making your comments. So if you hit that 4 minutes, I'm going to let you know.
And I think there's also to please speak slowly and clearly so your comment can be transcribed, and please call the Building Standards Commission at 916-263-0916 if you experience technical difficulties. Does anyone have questions regarding the Zoom and telephone instructions for today's meeting? Do you have any hands?
No, there's no hands raised.
All right, if there are no questions at this time, I'll proceed with the agenda items. Going through the first being the introduction and workshop overview.
Can you hit that little button at the top of your screen?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, we covered most of the introduction and workshop overview in the previous statements. So the following agenda items will further explain the purpose and structure of this workshop. And I'll move on to agenda item 2, which is to review the workshop charter, which will kind of outline our purpose and process for these meetings. And so I'll go through each of the items on this workshop charter, beginning with the purpose and goals. This charter is going to be a living document. So if there are suggestions for changes as we review this charter, we can implement those changes before the next meeting and review those changes during the next meeting. But it's intended that this isn't set in stone and that our process and objective will evolve as we go through these workshops. But our initial purpose and goals, this charter provides information on the objectives and expectations for workshops held to discuss and consider the development of building standards pursuant to SB 745, the Drought Resistant Buildings Act, statutes of 2023. SB 745 added Health and Safety Code section 18940.7, mandating the California Building Standards Commission research, develop, and propose building standards to reduce potable water use in new non-residential buildings. And I just want to add a note here that the recently passed AB 130 amended Health and Safety Code section 18930 to prohibit the adoption of building standards affecting residential units from October 1st, 2025 to June 1st, 2031, inclusive, with certain exceptions. And I have received a few questions regarding whether or not SB 745 would fall into that limitation on adopting new building standards. But one of those exceptions is that building standards proposed pursuant to Health and Safety Code section 18940.7, which is the section added by SB 745, are given an exception to this rule and may be considered for adoption during this period in the triennial code adoption cycles. So AB 130 disallows all but a few limited types of building standards from being adopted in the intervening code adoption cycles. And so we'll be looking at these standards for the next triennial adoption cycle. The Building Standards Commission has statutory responsibility and authority for proposing amendments to the California Green Building Standards Code, also known as Cal Green, Part 11 of Title 24, the California Code of Regulations, for non-residential construction, as well as related standards in the California Plumbing Code, Part 5 of Title 24. And the goal of the SB 745 workshops is to garner participation from all interested parties and affected stakeholders in the rulemaking process to inform participants of the roles and responsibilities of the agencies, stakeholders, and the public, and to provide informed, balanced input on building standards proposals. And with that, I'll move on to the role and authority that the Building Standards Commission has. And so it's important for workshop participants to understand the authority that the Building Standards Commission has related to Cal Green regulations based on California statutes. This information sets appropriate expectations about what the Building Standards Commission can accomplish through this initiative. And so we have the following role and authority. We have statutory responsibility and authority for proposing green building standards in Cal Green, where no other state agency has authority for occupancies within its authority. We have regulatory code adopting. We are a regulatory code adopting agency and not an advocacy group. As such, the Building Standards Commission is required to follow statutorily mandated procedures and propose regulations within their scope of authority and consistent with state law. The Building Standards Commission develops regulations based on executive action, legislative mandate, or a demonstrated need identified by the Commission or proposed by others. The Building Standards Commission is required by building standards law and the Administrative Procedures Act to evaluate the impact and costs of proposed building standards on a variety of different factors, including business, jobs, private pensions, benefits to health, safety, and welfare, cost of compliance, estimated benefits, and mandates on housing, local agencies, or school districts. And the Building Standards Commission is not an enforcement entity and delegates the enforcement of adopted non-residential Cal Green codes to local entities, usually local building departments, and the internal enforcing bodies of the California State University and University of California. And the Building Standards Commission provides many stakeholders and local authorities with technical assistance and training as well. And at this time, I'd like to invite Building Standards Commission staff, who I know we have a number of online with us today, who are in attendance, to unmute and introduce themselves. And Barbara, I don't know if it's helpful if people raise their hands. Or
They can.
okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you want to call on folks?
Yeah.
Or I can, Stoyan Bumbalov, good morning.
Good morning, Stoyan Bumbalov. I'm the Building Standards Commission Executive Director right now. I'll pass it to Kevin.
Thank you, Stoyan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Day. I'm Deputy Executive Director of the Building Standards Commission. Thank you, Havel. Go ahead, Enrique.
Yeah, Enrique Rodriguez, Associate Construction Analyst with the Building Standards Commission. Good morning, everyone.
All right, excellent. Good to see you this morning. Good morning. And that concludes the description of the Building Standards Commission's role and authority. I know that before we cover the state agency subject matter experts and their brief description of their authority, I did want to give the opportunity. I know that this workshop only pertains to non-residential standards pursuant to SB 745, for which the Building Standards Commission has authority. But I know we have a number of participants from the California Department of Housing and Community Development online with us as well. And they also are endeavoring in work related to SB 745. And so at this time, I'd like to invite the Department of Housing and Community Development staff who are in attendance to unmute and introduce themselves. And if they would like to share regarding their work pursuant to SB 745, just briefly, as that will not be a topic of today's workshop.
Hi, good morning, Havel, and everyone here. Tyler Mayo, State Housing Law Program Manager, representing the Department of Housing and Community Development. With me today is Calvin Val, our regulatory analyst, who has been assisting with coordination of SB 745. Other representatives from HCD are in attendance, that being our Assistant Deputy Director, Mitchell Baker, and our Housing Regulations Section Chief, Janet Klein. And as it relates to SB 745, I can provide the group with a minor update. HCD has contracted with UC Irvine to assist with the research and recommendations related to the statutes identified within this piece of legislation. This is specifically in regards to residential. As Havel mentioned, this is a non-residential workshop. So HCD is taking a listening role today. However, as we typically do with most of our building standards and research, we work in tandem with the Building Standards Commission and others to potentially align our language in applicable residential sections. So HCD does not have any public workshops scheduled at this time. We're closely following the law right now. We will have more on our pre-cycle activities related to residential as we approach closer to the 2027 triennial code adoption cycle. And that's what we have going on right now. Thank you, Havel and BSC, for putting this meeting together.
Thank you, Tyler. All right, and with that, I'd like to move on to state agency subject matter experts, or SMEs. The following agencies are not mandated by SB 745 to develop building standards, but have authority to adopt related regulations, and have expertise in green building subject matter areas related to water systems, recycled water, and public health. And these agencies with expertise in green building subject matter areas are allowed to provide input and recommendations per the California Administrative Code, Section 1-404. The first is the State Water Resources Control Board. Just briefly, the State Water Resources Control Board has the authority to adopt standards in Title 22 and develop the Cross-Connection Control Policy Handbook for drinking water systems, water quality, and recycled water. Water Resources Control Board is working to adopt regulations for on-site treated non-potable reuse in Title 22, Division 4, Chapter 3.5, commencing with Section 60600, on-site treatment and reuse of non-potable water. The State Water Resources Control Board also develops and adopts the Cross-Connection Control Policy Handbook. It provides standards intended to protect public health by ensuring backflow prevention of contaminants into public water systems. So at this time, I'd like to invite any staff of the State Water Resources Control Board who are in attendance this morning to unmute and introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Shirley Rosalella. I am a senior water resource control engineer with the State Water Resources Control Board. And I am the State Board staff lead for the adoption of on-site treatment and reuse of non-potable water regulations. Thank you for the opportunity for collaboration and invitation to this workshop. And I have with me this morning my colleague, Aide Ortiz. Aide?
Morning, my name is Aide Ortiz. I'm a senior water resource control engineer at the State Board, and I'm the lead staff who will be working on the SB 745 update to the on-site treatment and reuse of non-potable water regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shirley and Heidi. Nice to see you. Next, I'd like to go to the subject matter expert agency, the Department of Water Resources, and just briefly touch on their role and authority. The Department of Water Resources adopts recycled water definitions in the plumbing code, Title 24, Part 5, Chapter 2, and adopts standards for recycled water supply systems in buildings, primarily in the California Plumbing Code, Part 5, Chapter 15. The Department of Water Resources also provides educational resources and programs about water resources and conservation. And so at this time, I'd like to invite any staff of the Department of Water Resources who are in attendance today to unmute and introduce themselves.
Hello, I am Nancy King, and with me is Rich Mills, and we are representing the California Department of Water Resources. As you mentioned, we work on the plumbing code, developing standards to safely plumb buildings with both potable and non-potable water, specifically recycled water. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And before we conclude introductions of state agency staff who are present, I do want to thank today the Division of the State Architect who lent us their conference room. As you'll notice, the large DSA sign behind me here today. We are in their office this morning. And so I'd like to thank the Division of the State Architect and invite any of the Division of the State Architect staff who are present this morning to unmute and introduce themselves. And I see Eric Drever's hand is raised.
Good morning. Thank you. Yes, this is Eric Drever. I'm Principal Architect of the Division of the State Architect, Architectural Codes and Policies Unit. And we oversee CalGreen development in the non-residential section of CalGreen and have authority over school construction within CalGreen. So appreciate you hosting the workshop and look forward to participating. Thank you.
Hi, this is Alicia Chavez, supervising architect, also from DSA headquarters for the sustainability unit.
Tav Cummins, I'm a senior mechanical engineer, DSA.
Hi, I'm Ida Brown, senior architect with DSA sustainability unit.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for attending today. And thank you again for lending us your conference room. Much, much appreciated. I'd like to move on to the workshop objectives. The objectives of these workshops are as follows: to research and consider building standards for new non-residential buildings, including requiring installation of water reuse systems and requiring pre-plumbing of buildings to allow future use of recycled water, on-site treated gray water, or other alternative water sources. To seek input and recommendations from state agencies, municipal authorities, industry professionals, members of the public, and others with pertinent subject matter expertise in design, development, and enforcement of recycled water systems. To develop draft non-residential regulations for use in California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA review, and submission for adoption in the 2027 triennial code cycle, to be adopted in the 2028 edition of the Building Standards Codes. To evaluate the technical feasibility and enforcement of the proposed non-residential regulations, to determine the economic and fiscal impact of the draft non-residential regulations on the private sector, local government, and state government, including all applicable costs and benefits, including, but not limited to, cost to construct water systems, savings from water usage reduction, and benefits to the environment. And to obtain information for supporting rulemaking documents, including but not limited to the notice of proposed action, economic and fiscal impact statement, initial statement of reasons, statement of specific purpose, problem, rationale, benefits, technical, theoretical, and empirical study, report, similar documents, consideration of reasonable alternatives, et cetera, as supporting documents to that initial set of documents. And that concludes the workshop objectives. Going on to the proposed schedule. This is just a very preliminary, very rough outline of major milestones that we see for this project. I'd like to note regarding this schedule that the rulemaking related to this workshop and following SB 745 workshops will not occur until the 2027 triennial code adoption cycle, which I've mentioned a few times, for the 2028 California Building Standards Code. And the reason we're beginning these workshops now, so far in advance of that cycle, is that we've included time in our schedule to conduct a California Environmental Quality Act study of the draft proposed regulations that you'll see there from the summer of 2026, so the middle of next year, through the beginning of 2027. And that analysis is required in California to assess and disclose to decision makers and the public the potential environmental impacts of the proposed regulations. As a result, we're hoping to have draft regulations prepared by, as I said, the middle of next year, 2026, July 2026, at which time we would pause the development of those draft regulations and begin the CEQA analysis. So part of the reason that we're beginning these workshops so far in advance of the 2027 triennial rulemaking cycle is to allow time for that CEQA analysis and CEQA process to go through. So just looking over this briefly, our workshops would be conducted beginning now in September of 2025 through July of 2026. The final workshop would be in July 2026, at which time we would hope to have draft regulations that would be suitable for the CEQA study, and we would pause regulations or development of regulations at that time. The CEQA study would likely occur between summer 2026 and spring 2027, although that is a moving target depending on the scope of regulations and the potential impact they may have. Initial rulemaking submittals for parts 5 and 11, which are most likely the parts that will be affected by our workshops pertinent to this matter, are due by February 1st, 2027, which is when the 2027 triennial cycle will begin. The 45-day public comment period on those rulemaking documents would be between May and October of 2027. And we're hoping that we can align our public comment period for the CEQA analysis of those regulations with the rulemaking public comment period, just to allow as much time as possible to develop the regulations and conduct the CEQA study. And if they are included in it, they'll be published in the 2028 California Building Standards Code, which will be published July 1st, 2028, and effective January 1st, 2029. So that's the length of time that we're looking at, is that the standards we're discussing today and over the coming months would become effective January 1st of 2029. And moving along from the schedule, I want to talk about our workshop participants. The following organizations listed or their representatives have responded to the Building Standards Commission's request for interested parties in the development of regulations pursuant to SB 745. And it is the intent of the Building Standards Commission that workshop participants represent the interests of their broader stakeholder group and not solely their own interests or those of any specific organization. And this list is not meant to be comprehensive and does not necessarily represent all who are present at this workshop today. So at this time, I'd like to welcome all of you who are participants of today's meeting to introduce yourselves. Please raise your hand on Zoom, and Barbara will call on participants individually. Please introduce yourself and state the organization you represent, if any, and indicate if you'd like to be added to our workshop charter if your organization is not represented there already. And I see a number of hands going up.
Let's start with Bob. Bob Raymer?
Yeah. Hi, this is Bob Raymer. I'm representing 4 entities, the California Building Industry Association, the California Apartment Association, Building Owners and Managers of California, and the California Properties Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Next, we have Rich.
Hello, thank you for having me today. My name is Rich Anderson. I'm Director of PMG Technical Resources, and I'm here representing the International Code Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Eli.
Yes, thank you. Eli Persick, representing the University of California.
Thank you. We have Brian next.
Hi, good morning. Brian Sanders of the City of Sacramento. I'm here as an interested party, as a city with a dual plumbing ordinance in place for commercial buildings. But I will also be not just representing us, I will be working with some of our partner agencies in the greater Sacramento region. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Christine.
Good morning, I'm Christine Compton with Irvine Ranch Water District. We are a large retail water agency in the state that does a lot when it comes to recycled water and many firsts. We have many dual plumb buildings and have engaged with the commission and many of you on these policy topics for years. I'm also very involved on behalf of Water Reuse California and am the vice chair of their Ledge Reg committee. And so we'll be engaging with them on this as well as for Irvine Ranch Water District.
Thank you. Next, we have Marty.
Hello, Marty Johnson. I represent the El Dorado Irrigation District. We are a somewhat large recycled water provider for residential, mainly from backyards, about 5,500 connections, and just mostly here as an interested party to see how this will affect the non-residential use of non-potable water.
Thank you. We have Thomas.
Good morning, Tom Enslow. I represent the California State Pipe Trades Council. We were the sponsors of SB 745, so we're happy to see this get moving. I also represent IAPMO, the International Association of Plumbing Mechanical Officials, which are the publishers of the plumbing code that is used in California, and they should probably also be added to this list.
Thank you. Next, we have Enrique.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Enrique Gonzalez. I am the co-development administrator and manager for IAPMO. So I oversee the code development for the Uniform Plumbing Code. And I'm here to observe and answer any questions and assist in the process any way I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Megan.
Good morning. I'm Megan Murphy, Senior Regulatory Advocate with the California Municipal Utilities Association. We represent 85 publicly owned electric, gas, water, and wastewater utilities statewide. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. We don't have any other hands raised. We do have a phone participant. If they wanted to introduce themselves, they could do so at this time. I'll take that as a no. Oh, one more hand. Sorry. Is it Boo? I'm sorry.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Phu Nguyen from the Center for Hydrometeorology and Remote Sensing at the University of California.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves and for being participants in today's workshop. I just want to briefly touch on workshop etiquette. These workshops will be facilitated by designated Building Standards Commission staff. The following principles of etiquette ensure an opportunity for all participants to engage effectively and collaboratively in discussions and reinforce the collaborative nature of the workshop process. And those are to be respectful of each other and the right of everyone to openly express their perspective, even if different from or in opposition to your own. Listen intently and seek to understand the views of others. Provide an opportunity for each person to contribute to discussions. If you need to speak to another participant during discussions, ask for a brief break rather than engaging in sidebar conversations while our workshops are continuing. Silence or turn off your cell phones and refrain from texting or other communications during meetings. Make comments with consideration for and respect of the different levels of code knowledge of workshop participants. And participants are encouraged to attend all of these meetings going forward pursuant to SB 745. Consistent involvement will assist in the productivity of the discussions and avoid revisiting past discussions. And that concludes reviewing the workshop charter. This is, as I said, a living document that we've just reviewed the first draft of, and I welcome any suggested revisions or considerations for this document as we move forward with these workshops in the coming months. At this time, I'd like to welcome anyone who has comments on the workshop charter to raise their hand and speak, and Barbara will call on you individually.
Bob?
Hi, this is Bob Raymer with CBIA and the others. Going forward, when we've done this with other agencies, there's been the ability to, communicate, offline with everybody in the proceeding. whether it be through a mass email or whatever, or a Dropbox or whatnot. I'm sure there's going to be opportunity for lots of back and forth and thoughtful consideration on, both mandatory and voluntary regs going forward. Is there going to be an ability for us to like submit a document for others to kind of pick apart or whatever? Is that going to be available, do you think?
We can look at setting up, thank you for your comment, Bob. We can look at setting up some kind of a file sharing platform similar to what's been done, I know, for other workshops of this kind. I do think that is a good suggestion. We don't have one set up yet, so if you have documents that you would like considered, feel free to send them to myself or to the Building Standards Commission's main email inbox, which is available on our website, and we can review those and provide feedback or comment. And yeah, we'll look into some kind of a file sharing protocol for this group.
All right, thanks, Havel.
Thank you.
Any other hands? No, I don't see any other hands. And again, we have a phone participant, so if they'd like to make a comment, they can do so now. Okay. That's no more hands.
All right, well, with no further questions on the workshop charter, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is a review of the non-residential regulatory roadmap. And this roadmap is just to provide a broad overview of the regulatory considerations. We don't have a definitive direction forward and are looking for input from everyone who's present at today's meeting regarding these regulations. But this is the framework within which those regulations will take shape, and kind of the initial thoughts of the Building Standards Commission with the direction that these regulations might go. So just to begin with the regulatory mandate, this again is kind of recapping what was added to the Health and Safety Code by SB 745. Noting specifically Health and Safety Code section 18940.7, once again, which mandates that the California Building Standards Commission research, develop, and propose standards to reduce potable water use in new non-residential buildings. That section also mandates that the Building Standards Commission consider requiring installation of water reuse systems and pre-plumbing of buildings to allow for future use of recycled water, on-site treated gray water, or other alternative water sources. And in this context, water reuse systems has been defined to include the following: systems that use recycled water, gray water, rainwater, or other sources for non-potable indoor or outdoor use, including landscaping, toilet and urinal flushing, floor trap priming, or cooling towers. Or a system that captures gray water, rainwater, building foundation water drainage, or other on-site alternative water sources. And I just want to reiterate here that these standards will be proposed for adoption in the next triennial code adoption cycle and will not become effective until 2029. Additionally, part of that mandate is that these standards be reviewed and updated every 3 years with the triennial code adoption cycle. So while this is our first endeavor pursuant to SB 745 and developing and researching standards, there will be future opportunities to further refine and develop those standards with each subsequent triennial rulemaking cycle. So that's just something I thought I would note. I also provided here a list of existing related regulations from Title 24 that are related to this matter. And these are provided for reference only. They're just the section number and title. But just to demonstrate that we are investigating these standards or researching these standards within an existing regulatory context. So there is a lot within the plumbing code in particular already that regulates these systems, defines their use. And we're looking to develop regulations that fit well within this existing regulatory framework. Also of note is that there are existing regulations related to the mandate of SB 745 for the Building Standards Commission in the Cal Green Code. So we already have a number of regulations that fall into categories related to the water reuse systems described in SB 745, particularly in the non-residential voluntary tiers, the voluntary measures. And those are an area in particular that we're looking to further develop the regulations pursuant to SB 745. As described in this blurb about our regulatory strategy. So this is kind of a broad overview of our initial thoughts on how these regulations might develop. The regulatory strategy are the Building Standards Commission's initial proposal is to relocate and revise existing voluntary non-residential standards, fitting the mandate of SB 745 from those voluntary tiers into the mandatory portion of the Cal Green regulations. And similar to the organization of the existing voluntary tiers, these standards would provide different options for compliance. Currently, a number of the standards that are in the voluntary tiers are electives, from which you only need to select one elective for tier 1 or 3 electives for tier 2. And our current thought on the approach would be to do something similar, but for mandatory measures, and have a number of different options for compliance, but only require that one of those options be selected for compliance in the mandatory portion of the Cal Green Code. And so similar to the organization of the existing voluntary tiers, these standards would provide different options for compliance such that project teams may choose the system or systems that work best for their project and budget. And these would come with, as well, significant exceptions for projects where all of the options, all of the systems are infeasible for whatever reason those standards might not be feasible for that project, be it prohibitively expensive, a lack of access to required water resources, other extenuating water reuse cases in the environment surrounding that project. So the intention is really that, particularly as this would be, the initial adoption of these standards with subsequent development over the following triennial cycles, the intention is really not to impose a hardship with these standards, but just to provide a variety of options, one of which would meet the mandatory requirement. And this is somewhat demonstrated in the regulatory outline below. This, is by no means regulatory text or express terms. This just kind of demonstrates what shape the existing regulations could be reformatted into, were they to, were we to transfer the voluntary electives into the mandatory portion of the Cal Green Code and have those be options for compliance. And so you can see here, these standards would likely move into Division 5.3, water efficiency and conservation within Cal Green. Section 5305, water reuse systems, is currently reserved and is perfectly suitable for standards of this kind. And there would be an initial scoping portion of the regulations that would spell out the different options for compliance, the requirements for compliance, that one option that needs to be selected from the range of options provided. And the sections following that would be referenced by that scoping section are essentially relocated from the voluntary tiers. And the intention, just broadly speaking, would not be to eliminate the voluntary standards, but rather to have the voluntary tiers reference remaining voluntary electives and also mandatory options for additional reach codes in tier 1 and tier 2 voluntary measures. But these would provide a jumping off point for including options in the mandatory code, as these have been in the voluntary tiers for quite a while. And so at this time, I would love to hear any comments or feedback that you might have on this regulatory roadmap and the direction that the Building Standards Commission is thinking of pursuing. So if anyone has comments on the regulatory roadmap, please raise your hand and Barbara will call on you, and be very interested in hearing your feedback.
Thomas?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, a couple comments on that. One, I mean, I get why you're looking right now at what's already in the Cal Green, but I think it's really important that we can look beyond that. San Francisco and Sacramento both have ordinances that are I think should be looked at as examples for what the state can do as far as requiring the use of on-site portable water and requiring pre-plumbing of certain buildings and not to be able to use recycled water or on-site treated potable water. And they've been adopted. We can look at how they're working, and I think that they should also be in the mix of what we're looking at doing through this process. Secondly, in developing these standards, the SB 745 expressly it states that a little different than how these standards are normally adopted at the state, that we can adopt standards based on occupancy, building type, building size, development size, or availability of planned availability of recycled water. And that's what's been done in some of these other local jurisdictions is they have standards that apply to buildings over 10,000 square feet, standards that apply to buildings over 50,000 square feet, standards that apply to buildings over 250,000 square feet, and just kind of ratchet it up because we know, for example, an on-site treated potable water system is probably not going to be economical for a small building, but for a large construction or large development, it can be economical. But then when we're looking at these, smaller buildings, there's no reason that they shouldn't have gray water irrigation systems if they have landscaping, that sort of stuff. So I do encourage that this roadmap take into account that not only that's been direction, but explicit jurisdiction to adopt standards based on, building size, development type. And so I think that should be looked at as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Bob.
Hey, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, we're having bandwidth problems over here in Nevada. This is Bob Raymer with BOMA and CBPA, and I completely agree with what Tom just said. A couple of things. I'll be sending you a number of documents and some suggestions on both application and exemptions. But I also wanted to bring up, I don't know if Tom was going in this direction, but if you go back about 8-9 years, we spent a lot of time developing the AB 2282 regulations for attempted pre-plumbing, but and definitely bringing recycled piping to buildings that had access to centralized recycling water facilities. Those were a good set of regs. They got challenged in court. And the court found that there were some administrative shortcomings in the process, but the court didn't opine at all on whether or not it was a good or bad set of codes. In my opinion, there was a lot of good stuff in those codes that we could once again make access to. And especially if we're going to be doing an EIR later on, which is always a pain. But I like where Tom was going. And once again, I'll send a number of things I've already put together for this to you, Havel and Stoyan, for dissemination to the rest of the group to start off the discussion. But I like Tom's idea of having variations in the application rules, small, medium, and large, and economic considerations. That sounds like the great way to go here. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have any other hands raised. Phone, for the person on the phone, if they'd like to make a comment, they can do so now. I will take that as a no. We don't have any further comments.
Okay, well, Bob and Tom, thank you for your feedback. I'll definitely look out for any examples or further communication that you want to share, and we can look at disseminating that with this group, particularly if we're able to set up some kind of a file sharing platform, which it sounds like would be a useful tool for this group to have. There is one additional specific matter that was raised prior to this meeting. This was raised by Steve Bilson with Rewater. I don't know if he is in attendance today and would like to speak to this additional consideration. Steve, are you on the line? I didn't hear him during the introductions.
I don't see any.
Okay. Well, he requested that we consider amendments to the plumbing code to align the language in 1503.1 and 1503.3 to allow a reduced pressure backflow preventer in both of those sections of the code, as opposed to an air gap being the only protection that is allowed in the exception in 1503.3. And looking at this matter and hearing some input from the State Water Resources Control Board, it sounds like the intention is that gray water systems and potable water systems only be separated with an air gap, and that this would not be a suitable change to the code from a public health standpoint. But if anyone else has feedback on this additional consideration, or if Steve is able to join us in the next few moments here, we're open to hearing additional comments on this code change at this time. So if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand now on the Zoom.
Rich?
Excellent. Thank you, guys. From a plumbing standpoint, we know that an air gap is the most effective way to prevent against cross-connection control. However, if we start looking at reduced pressure principal backflow preventers, or RPs, RPZs, as they're commonly referred to, this is like the highest level of mechanical cross-connection control that we can achieve in the built environment. We use them throughout model plumbing codes throughout the country, to include the California Plumbing Code and other areas. It's definitely something to be considered by the committee and to see what they can do. I am a proponent of offering options in the built environment that still protect public health and safety. I don't know if my partners at IAPMO want to add anything to that, being the California Plumbing Code, but that is pretty much what we do for cross-connection control. Matter of fact, when I was with the city of Austin as division manager over all of building inspections, Austin Water actually had an ordinance that prohibited just air gap. Because what happens sometimes is you might get splashing water or something come from that air gap when you're filling, say, a tank. And sometimes a maintenance person inadvertently may put a hose on that. And that comes back to, now we have a cross connection and we have a place where we can siphon potable or non-potable water into a potable water source. So Austin Water actually required that these types of tanks for rainwater harvesting are non-potable, or like the city of Austin's Oscar system that utilizes black water and treats it and sends it back into the building for their development services building. They actually require a mechanical cross-connection control so that some maintenance person does not do something inadvertently without being educated on the importance of that air gap. And then you actually have a cross-connection that is created after the final inspections. Just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Enrique?
Hi, thank you for that. And good comments from Rich. And I agree that it could be pretty restrictive currently as written. And what's been done in other parts of the code, when there are other options or jurisdictions do allow for other methods of backflow prevention or cross connection, is a reference to table 603.2, which is in the chapter for water supply and backflow prevention. That table has degrees of hazards. So it really depends on what their water source is, and very particular to what the conditions are. And so that table would allow for the RPs or whatever is appropriate for the conditions, and allow for the jurisdiction to be flexible. So referencing table 603.2 would be a good update, as Rich indicated, to kind of open up the allowance other than an air gap, when an air gap may not be appropriate or permissible. But that's a good reference. Table 603.2.
Thank you, Enrique.
All right, I don't see any other hands up for our phone participant. If they'd like to make a comment, they could do that. I will take that as an ask.
All right, well, see, before we sum up this meeting, do you have an agenda item here for related items that are not on the agenda today? So if anyone has any items that they would like to bring forth for discussion by the group related to this matter, please raise your hand. And I see Bob's hand shot up there.
Okay, this is Bob Raymer again. One of the things that was very helpful in a couple of the other sort of proceedings like this, particularly with the fire marshals, wildland regs, and some EV charging, it was really good to get access to other cases where this stuff has been attempted. Tom mentioned San Francisco and Sacramento. To the extent, BSC could kind of hunt down any jurisdictions that have, full-blown ordinances in place or whatever, it would be great to see how they went about it, so instead of kind of reinventing the wheel, we can cut and paste off of some of that stuff. That's always been helpful. And I wouldn't focus only on California. There's probably a lot of Western and Southwestern areas that have done stuff. So that's another suggestion. And once again, I'll send, the stuff I've got to you, Havel, as I crank it out. And then please share it with the others. And I've got my email address on it. So, everybody else, go ahead and pick this stuff apart, because this is just a first attempt at this, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Bob. And to that effect, if there's anyone in attendance here today who would like to be added to our list of workshop participants and interested parties, who would be the list that I am distributing any information that is appropriate to share with the group please send the Building Standards Commission or send directly to myself just a quick email that you'd like to be added to that list, just so that I have your email, your contact, and can make sure that you're getting updates on these workshops and additional information related to the workshops. And I see Alicia, you have your hand up.
Oh, hi. Yeah, we will definitely be reaching out to be added to your email list and to view any products of the studies. As you know, we have authority over schools and community colleges and Part 11 and Part 5 as well. And thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Brian?
I apologize for this. It's really loud where I'm at. So can I just get clarification? Those of us who are listed as participants on this document that we're viewing, will we automatically be on that distribution list? And again, I'm sorry to ask.
Yeah, everyone that is listed in our workshop charter currently is on our interested parties list. So that's where this list comes from. So I do believe I have your email on there, Brian, for the city of Sacramento.
Great, thank you. And again, I'm sorry to ask. It's just very loud here.
No, not at all. I don't know that I made that perfectly clear when we were going over the interested parties list. And I see Rich, you have your hand up.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to comment on some of those additional resources that we had already mentioned. I think we're all aware of the work Paula Kehoe has done in San Francisco with like requiring black water so that they're not, utilizing potable water to fill those tanks, whether we have an environmental buffer or not. But we can also look towards, an organization that she's very active in, the National Blue Ribbon Commission, as well as the EPA's water reuse and recycling initiatives. There's some efforts going on with there. I mentioned one of the states I cover that I still cover is Texas. I know the city of Austin is working on some requirements for the contractor and the design professional, ICC actually has a pins filed with ANSI. We're going to develop a guidance document first, and then we're going to turn that into hopefully a standard for professional qualifications for installers, designers, inspectors, and what we're calling kind of like commissioning of these systems, if you will, or to ensure that they're properly maintained and installed the way they're going to be. So there is a lot of work going on throughout the entire country on this effort. We can also look to, other countries. Israel was water dependent, 20 years ago. Now they're water independent. And they're doing that through a large water reuse program. They currently do not use any of water reuse for domestic use. They concentrate a lot of their water reuse things on commercial irrigation, if you will, for farming and crops and other things. So those are also things that we can consider. And if ICC is not on this list, please add us. We are there. I see that now. And thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. We have our phone participant still, if our phone participant would like to make a comment. All right. The next item on our agenda is, sorry about that. Enrique?
Yes, thank you. I just, I don't know if that's the all-inclusive list there, but I was also wondering the IATMO or International Plumbing and Mechanical Code officials is on that list.
I don't think you are yet, but I'll add you after today's workshop. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Megan?
Hi, thank you. I'm not sure if this is appropriate time to comment, but just in response to some of the comments that were being made, Megan Murphy, California Municipal Utilities Association. I just caution you all to maybe not think of everything that's super cutting edge as a requirement, just as some agencies, it may not make sense. Water suppliers do a lot of analysis on sources of supply and alternatives. And I know, for example, one agency had begin developing purple pipe, and then after further analysis, it did not make sense for them. And so they have all of this abandoned infrastructure. And so while dual plumbing and things like that are great in areas where it makes sense, I caution you to make it a requirement for all building and development. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Megan.
That's everyone. Oh, I lied. Eli?
Kind of going on that comment, just a question how this would consider utilities that are working on direct potable reuse, like San Francisco and San Diego, which basically would make it so then you don't need necessarily a secondary recycled water infrastructure.
My understanding of the AB 2282 regulations that were developed previously was that they included a broad exception for projects that were in the range of a municipal scale water reuse project of that type. Basically, if your site already had access to water from a water reuse program of some kind, you would be exempt from the mandatory requirements. That was my understanding of what was done previously and would likely be considered as an exception for these standards as well. And it looks like Bob has his hand up, maybe to comment on that as well.
Yeah, Havel, you got it completely right. One of the things I'm sending you is my best attempt at what AB 22 regs for non-res had said. I may have missed a few things, but I focused greatly on the application provisions. We spent the most time on that kind of stuff. And there are some cases, I believe it was 300 feet. If the locals were providing recycled water from a central system, and the infrastructure from that system was within 300 feet of the perimeter of the development or building, you'd have to go ahead and provide the purple pipe stubs and all that to at least the landscaping. In addition, there were also exceptions if the municipal recycling water facility has already basically been booked. You know, if all of their water is already accounted for, then it wouldn't make any sense to do it beyond that, unless they were going to build a new facility or expand the facility in the next couple of years. The AB 2282 regs accounted for all of that. However, I obviously that's kind of a starting point. If we're going to be going inside the dwelling, not the dwellings, the commercial buildings, we're going to have to expand on what was in 2282. But once again, I'll send that to you and do with it whatever you want, Havel. Have a good one.
Thank you, Bob. Eli, did that address your comment?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And I see we have Christine with a hand raised.
Thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on that. I think as part of the AB 2282 conversations, there were lots of conversations about trying to make sure that the water would actually be available, right?
Right.
We weren't just asking folks to dual plumb a property if there wasn't that, and balancing it with what the rest of, you know, the law says about cost effectiveness and everything else. And so I would really encourage you as we move forward to take that same sort of approach when we're looking at this, because one, we don't want, there are requirements even on, you know, local public water suppliers, right? When a building dual plumbed. And so we need to make sure that it is comprehensive, but does balance all the things, many of which Bob mentioned, but there were many others that went into the conversation on the prior draft of the regulations.
Thank you, Christine. And I see Tom has his hand raised.
Oh, yes, thanks. Just to push back a little bit on the idea that there'd be a broad exception, like where there is, you know, not recycled water available, or where there is the water reuse projects going. I think there is a place for for some of these standards. For example, requiring landscaping to have gray water. I think you have to look at all of the above. We have water shortages here, and even with water recycling, we need to look at all the different things. And then also, if you look at what's happening, for example, in Sacramento, this is where you have different sized buildings, right? If you have the very large developments where they're requiring them to have on-site water treatment, there are exceptions there for where there is access to recycled water, so that you don't have to do a plumb for the on-site treatment. You don't have to do the on-site treatment system. So I think as we develop these regulations, it is going to be a bit of a choose your own adventure path, in that we need to recognize where certain requirements make sense, where they don't, where certain requirements can be superseded because there's something else going on at the utility, what the utilities are providing, and where all of the above for some of the potential requirements makes sense as well. So there's I think one thing that's made clear is that there's not necessarily one size fits all, but I think there are specific enough buckets that it is amenable to regulation, taking into account the different variables that we see out there. There are only so many different paths. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom.
Brian?
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to offer a point of clarification. Here in the city of Sacramento, as far as the requirements are concerned, new construction of 10,000 square feet or larger is required to have a gray water system for subsurface irrigation. That's a requirement. But for new construction of 50,000 square feet or larger, there is a requirement for dual plumbing, but there is not a requirement that the developer install a system. It needs to be set up in such a way that it could be utilized if desired, but it is not a requirement.
Thanks for that clarification, Brian. I see Michael's hand. Michael, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Is your microphone muted, like a secondary mute, if you have a headset possibly? Michael's audio is not working.
Maybe Michael, is it possible, could you call into the meeting via the teleconference phone number so that we can hear your audio? You're also welcome to submit any comments you might have on this meeting to the Building Standards Commission email, main inbox, or directly to myself if you'd like to make a written comment, Michael. Okay. All right, well, seeing no further hands for questions, the Building Standards Commission will work to incorporate today's feedback into draft regulations for consideration in our next meeting, and we'll likely schedule the next workshop for November. I do see a couple of hands going up though. Michael, if you have a comment.
Perhaps you've got a different microphone selected than what you're trying to use. Do you want to move to Stoyan and then come back to Michael?
I don't have a comment. I just wanted to let you know that Mike Kuros is still raising his hand. So.
Right. And Mike, if you are able to maybe teleconference call into the meeting, that might be another way to let us hear what you're saying. But currently, we cannot hear your comment if you are speaking. We don't have any chat features.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, as I was saying, We will likely schedule the next workshop for November. And as I said, if you have additional comments or information, please reach out to the Building Standards Commission or myself through the contact information available on our website. Are there any final comments at this time before we go to adjourn this meeting? Okay. Well, with that, I'd like to thank you all for your participation today. And I look forward to continuing to work with you on this project. This concludes the first SB 745 non-residential workshop of the California Building Standards Commission. So thank you all very much and have a great day.